Hello, and welcome to the Roll-Wise Show, where we talk about all things tabletop role-playing. Today, we're going to be talking about the role-playing game Inevitable, a Doomed Arthurian Western, as we just completed a story arc, I guess one could say, within this very imaginative blend of Arthurian fantasy and Western vibes. Before we get into that, though, if you do like these kind of conversations, you want to hear more about the games we play, or have suggestions, don't be afraid to hit the like button, comment your games, share this with your friends, subscribe, do all those things so you can kind of keep up with us as we go and on our own journey of discovery of new, interesting games that are out there. So I think really because it's just Brent and I, Jeff is unable to make it, holiday weekend and everything like that. He had other engagements. We're going to talk about Inevitable. We just played it. We actually had been playing Inevitable for the last
4 months. I think we started. Didn't we start in January? I think January into December.
We might have.
I think we started. Yeah. No, I think we started in January. Yeah, I think it was the first game we picked up for the year. So it's been 4 months.
Yeah. So honestly, Inevitable was an interesting choice because we were kind of like I wouldn't say that we're in a we're not in a funk or anything like that. We were just looking for something a little bit different to play that wasn't your typical swords and sorcery or something like that, and just wanted to get off the beaten path.
Well, I think somebody mentioned playing like a Western game because it's rare that we play Western games, which prompted us both to play Deadlands on the show and then Inevitable on our home game, I think.
Yeah, so just something entirely different. And so I believe, we'd kind of looked out there and we'd kind of seen some recommendations. And there are lots of games that kind of feel that. And I think we were specifically looking for more of a Weird West than just a straight up like Bonanza gunslinger type game. Something a little bit more to it. And this one was interesting because Inevitable is, well, first of all, Inevitable is a Doomed Arthurian Western, which means that it's a game that tries to blend both Arthurian and Western themes. Now, this is something that when you look at the book and the information that it provides and the type of setting that it's doing, is it gives you enough information that you have a fleshed out setting. But you as the people that are playing the game have enough agency, of course, to decide how Western or how Arthurian you go. Because you can obviously ignore what they say in some spots, or you can just build on what they provided. There's plenty of inspiration and all that stuff. I tried to take it where I blended enough of the Arthurian and stuff where I kind of felt like it was in both worlds, so like a knight errant having one of the 12, amazingly named pistols from
Was that your decision or is that in the character profile? That's in the character profile, isn't
it? It well, that is, but I'm just saying you could probably eliminate or go with as much as you want, because as we started the game out, character creation can be as little as like having a name, a horse you rode in on, and then like a couple other like a reputation that people know you by. So it's a very, very quick game to play and everything like that. But really the idea of blending kind of an Arthurian fantasy with a Western was neat to me, because King Arthur's men running around in chaps and 6-shooters was in the beginning kind of a neat idea. What about you, buddy? Did you think that was something different? Did you like that?
It was different, and I liked it at the beginning. But the more that we played it, I kind of got the feeling that there should have been commitment to one or the other instead of blending it. We talked about a little bit off show. I think you can have a Knights of the Round Table and then be gunslingers and not have like swords and a lot of the knightly stuff. And I think it probably would have been, for me, it would have been better if they would have done it that way. It's sort of like the Magnificent Seven is the Seven Samurai, but they're cowboys. There's no swords in it. There's no katanas. So I think the game would have benefited from a commitment to one or the other a little bit more, in my opinion, as far as the setting's concerned. But again, that's just my opinion. I would have liked it to be more Western than Arthurian. I felt like there was some tonal conflicts that happened in the game where they tried to blend both, and with the addition of it being a post-apocalyptic game.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting you mentioned that, because it is the game, I think that while that's billed as a it's Arthurian Western, there are a lot of other historical contexts that you are presented with that obviously you can use or not use, your choice really as to how you play it. But at least the book is written, has this barren, race that is super advanced, floating castles. It has the city of Hubris, which is kind of like a modern scientific city that, basically was melted due to radiation. So
there's radioactive towers on the map. There's
literally the steam vents that nuclear power plants have, and so there's just a lot of things that are kind of pulling in different directions on some of that. But I do think that the areas that we were focused on I really like, because I thought we got a good balance of kind of, I at least felt that I was able to keep it in the lane, which was kind of nice, because I did like having you guys you guys basically suggest some people go help bust up some unions over on the Get ranchers, and then of course on the other side.
That was a fun moment. I enjoyed that moment. That was good. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was definitely some good stuff in related to that. Now, what makes this game kind of unique, and this is something I'm not really sure if this is what makes me happy or not. Because first of all, this is a very narrative focused game. The core mechanics about the game are to try to talk about the story that you have with your players about this game. And I don't know if this has been said before, if it probably has, and I may have read it somewhere, but this game is a play to lose kind of experience, where like you're not playing to win, because if you win, you just go on to the next doom, and then you just go until you die. So there is this is one of those games. It's very much about the journey, but it's kind of, you're going to the end where you're saying like, oh, we're just going to go until we die. Yay. And so there's kind of a weird fatalist approach to it, in my opinion, where you guys have a prophecy that has told you that the kingdom of Myth is going to be destroyed, and therefore you're trying to stop it, but you can't. So, okay.
Yeah, the mechanics of the game are kind of built to run your characters in the ground, run them out of resources, and they die, pretty much.
Yeah. And of course, how do you do this? There are two main mechanics in Inevitable. There is a challenge mechanic, and then there is a showdown mechanic. Now, the way that these differ is that kind of a challenge is any time in which your players can experience kind of some interesting consequences for trying to adjust the story forward. So like there's not like this isn't a game that really engages in the traditional concept of like a D&D fight. Like, let's say you find a pack of roamers as you're crossing, you're crossing the heartland. You wouldn't go, okay, well, roll initiative to, basically say, okay, I'm going to go first. I'm going to shoot my 6-shooter and all that stuff. This is more of a game that for those people that like expressive fun, where you're kind of like changing the narrative and everything like that, you're supposed to use your reputations, the weapons that you have and everything like that to craft an outcome where you have, you basically craft the outcome to your advantage and then can proceed the story forward, or you can pay costs for failing to craft said outcome. So in this game, the way that it's designed is that you have a failure, which you pay a cost, which seems like you pay a cost on 1 through 5 on a D6, and and then on a 6 you succeed fully, so you actually do what you're supposed to do. But on a 1 through 3, you fully fail at your task. On a 4 or 5, you accomplish your task. You gain a showdown token, which we'll talk about in a second. But you suffer a consequence. And on a 6, you suffer no consequence. So it's a consequence-free victory. And
you can use your reputations, your abilities, or items to add a D6 to your roll.
Yep. Right. And so
you can roll multiple D6s, but it's never, I don't think we ever got over more than 3.
Well, I think, because you can, so in this game, you have these things that are reputations, which is what is your character known the Barren wide for? And
which you can only use one of per challenge.
Per challenge. And you're basically, it's like, how is your character known? Are they just? Are they conniving? Are they sneaky? Those kind of things, and how would they play into that? that challenge. Then there are things that are weapons and equipment. Everybody has different types of equipment, whether they be like sanctified pistols or, wrought iron shotguns that fire the bones of recently dead. Like there's just some really weird, unique stuff in there.
And you have your character abilities. Like my ability as a roamer was, I basically just killed one person in an encounter and could use a D6 where shooting was part of the encounter.
Yeah, so basically a crack shot and everything like that. And then you can also gain D6s by if your allies put themselves in harm's way as part of the encounter as well. So each ally that puts themselves in harm's way also does that. So the consequences for challenges can really be anything that's interesting. And so like we had one character that seemed to fail a lot of these challenges, and especially when he was doing like high power things where it's
he was what wizard? It wasn't called a wizard.
He was the mystic.
Yeah, he was the mystic in the game, which is a wizard, which has magical powers. And pretty much every time he tried to use the powers, he would succeed, but he would succeed again with the consequence. And so he wound up blind? And
yeah. He wound up suffering a lot of interesting consequences along the way, let's say. But the point is that, if it doesn't have a consequence that's interesting, usually you just advance the story however the players like. So kind of like Shadowrun Anarchy, the players have a lot of agency to adjust, like create and move the story forward with the kind of descriptors and narrative components that they like. And then there's a thing called the showdown. The showdown is a little bit different in so much as that you get a D6, and you're basically rolling against a target number that's generated by the number of showdown tokens you have and the number of and the threat that said showdown represents. Now, showdown tokens you get by doing challenges on your way to this showdown. So
isn't the threat set and then the threat is modified by the showdown tokens?
Yeah,
and then you can modify your roll by whatever consequences you decide and a value assigned.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. So basically you end up rolling a D6, you add a bonus based on the stated cost that you wish to pay. And then when you roll,
which is usually a member of the party.
That's not entirely true. It just so happens that the cost could be any of the following, and the first thing is death. That's literally the first thing that's listed, which is, I would think that, they'd be like, and if all else fails, death, like that. I just feel like that should be at the end.
It's true.
But you could learn, but like as cost and everything like that, you can earn a lasting wound. You can do reputations, conditions, and everything like that. Like again, they're more narratively inspired kind of costs, except for the death, then you're just dead, I guess.
You're almost always gonna pay the cost. So if you're saying your character is going to die for a bonus, chances are they're going to die in the showdown.
Yeah, because the problem is that the threat number, and this is why it's a play to lose game, is that the threat continuously gets higher and higher the more dooms you do. So eventually you're just like, there's no way you can beat the threat number. So whatever cost you elected to do, you're just hoping you have enough showdown tokens to reduce that threat number to a number you can hit. That you only pay the cost and you still succeed.
Right.
So showdowns were an interesting mechanic. I know I feel like, there's a lot to talk about, like with classes and everything like that. But Brent, the challenges and showdowns, I think you had some particularly strong opinions about them. What did you like about them, first of all? And then maybe what did you maybe feel didn't work as well for you?
I am confused at the system. I felt like they did a lot to support the gimmick of the doomed characters, and it kind of sacrificed some of what could have been a good rules, in my opinion. One and the rest of the people playing, a lot of the people in our group enjoyed it. I was probably the one dissenting voice that didn't enjoy it strongly. The setting really didn't do it for me, and then I have some problems with the rules. One, as far as the challenges were okay, but it's like, as the roamer, I played the roamer, which is basically the most Western character. They're good with a gun. They're good with guiding people through the wasteland. The guiding through the people through the wasteland part I liked, because I felt like that was I felt like that had narrative significance. Like there was a lot of times where I could tell I could just lead the characters places, and I like that. As far as the Deadeye, his second defining character trait, I feel like that really didn't have very much narrative impact. Because it's a narrative game. So like just killing a guy, shooting a guy, deadshotting a guy doesn't really matter. Like you said, it's not a real it's not a D&D combat. It's not like you're really changing anything by taking a guy out of the picture. Because that dice roll, your dice roll is going to be impacted by the other ability, which is I get an extra D6 for all of those challenges, which is nice. But again, it's still only two dice, and you have to get a 6 on one of those dice for it to not have a consequence. So you're pretty much always going to have a consequence, I felt, which I didn't really enjoy that, feeling like our characters were constantly just beaten down all the time. As far as a showdown, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just about to say that the thing about it is we didn't actually roll that many challenges. And because we didn't roll a lot of challenges, there were just a lot of, every time we rolled, it just felt like rolling the dice was bad. Like,
right. You can't, but that's the thing, is you can't have a lot of challenges. Like you can't run it like a normal game because your character's going to be a cripple by the end of more of a cripple than our one character was. Not that blind people are crippled, but you know what I mean? He would have been legless and like without hands and stuff by the time it was all over. And like, it would have been very hard for him to continue the adventure. I mean, he would have been like, but like, that's the thing, is like your character just eventually gets so low and low. And how often did your stuff refresh? Like, it wasn't very often.
Well, it depends, because they're supposed to refresh every time you do a showdown. So like, and so what the limitation of the game is that you can use your reputations or whatever it is one time per refresh. I mean, in abilities typically, like you only use them one time refresh. Is that, like and so the idea is that you have showdowns on a fairly irregular basis. Like the game is trying to get you to have more showdowns, I think, than probably we had, because it felt like showdowns to me, at least as they were written, like let's just hypothetically say, like you had a goal of getting to the cannibal saint. To get to the cannibal saint, you have to go through the gourmand. The gourmand is a showdown, and then there's a showdown for his next lieutenant, and then he's the final showdown. So there'd be 3 showdowns, and then
So you're killing a character every time you do a showdown. So okay, so you have like 2 players left by the end of the final showdown. Okay, gotcha.
Potentially.
But like the showdown. Okay, so the showdown mechanic. I didn't like the showdown mechanic, and I probably like that less than anything else in the game. I don't like the fact that it's only ever 1 dice. Because like your chances of a real success are minimal, and I know it's designed that way. Like I get it. I just don't feel like it's designed well. The fact that all of your character abilities, like all the fancy shit that your character has, your magic gun, your demon slaying sword, your dead eye, like none of that matters for the showdown. None of it. So your character type doesn't matter anytime there's a showdown, really. Which I think is bad character design. Anytime you give somebody something special and you have these key moments, they should be able to use that special thing. Even if it's to failure, even if it fails, they should be able to use their special thing, I think. And I feel like that's a feels bad thing for me. I'm not going to talk for everybody. I'm just going to say for me, I think it's a feels bad thing. And just like, yeah, your character just show like your character attrits down to nothing. And then the showdown happens, and probably part of the reason they designed the showdown is because they don't expect you to have any skills and stuff left by the time you get to the showdown. So that's why it doesn't calculate in the showdown, but that's just not, it just didn't feel good to me. Like you're almost always going to, I feel, lose some, like, here's one of the things that you're saying, like it wasn't necessarily character death during a showdown that'll happen, right?
Mm-hmm. But there are other costs that you can play.
The costs are significant. Like your characters, like in our case, it was like your characters become branded as people involved in the rebellion. You're no longer part of the like, right. So you're intrinsically changing. Like in your case scenario that you said, where you fight the gourmand and then the cannibal saint and stuff like that. Like if you run a showdown and that consequence is something like you're exiled, like you're not having the second showdown because you intrinsically changed the point of the game.
Yeah.
Like, and so that's not a good, like, I just don't think it tells as good of a story as it could. And again, everybody can comment on how much Brent sucks because he hates Inevitable. But the point is, it wasn't for me, and I think everybody should try it. I think everybody should try the game. But for me, I feel like it wasn't. I feel like they sacrificed they could have written the rules better if they weren't so attached to this inevitable doom gimmick of the game. I feel like the gimmicky nature of the game made me enjoy it less. Like, because I mean, part of one of the things that's cool about role playing is like not knowing what's going to happen, like not knowing what the characters are going to do and not knowing what the characters are going to happen. And this game starts with, well, your characters are just going to die. Like there's no real
you're going to succumb to the doom,
right? There's no real chance you're going to get out of this positively. And the more I played the game, the more I felt like I just didn't feel like the story. It felt to me like, have you ever read a book where like you get to the end of the book and they wake up and it's just a dream that happened? You ever read those books? Like that's how I started to feel about the adventure we were playing. I was like, I don't really understand what. There's not going to be any character growth by the end of the game, or there might be, but it's going to be momentarily because they're going to be doomed afterwards, like to use their term.
Yeah, and I think that this is definitely reliant on the idea that how your character progresses through the story is the growth that they experience. It's not there's no levels or anything like that associated with this, but it's because it kind of focuses on the idea that as you change the story and adjust your reputations, that's how your character's legend grows, and so you do things in order to be legendary. And I think that the when I was first reading it, the scale of the cadre was lost on me, which I thought was pretty funny because we had one character make a knight errant. And I before we started play, I'd been looking at the Knights Errant, and I'd been rereading some of the information. And I must have just scanned over and it just didn't register. But it's just like there are only 12 Knight Errants.
Yeah, so you're super important to the setting.
Yeah, you're literally one of the Knights of the Round Table, literally one of 12 people known in the realm. So it's like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, the idea that you have this hero cadre, you're basically well-known reputation, like your reputation precedes you. Like people, there's not like other games, like in Cyberpunk when we just started playing it, reputation is something that if people roll under or whatever, then they know who you are for whatever you did.
Right.
Whereas this,
and you have to build up.
Yeah. You are known as, Eric the Red because you're a bloodthirsty tyrant that on the battlefield loses himself to bloodthirst, like that, like that's how you're known. And so you go, and as you explore the story, you have to explore yourself as Eric the Red. Like people react to you because you're Eric the Red, not because you're just some guy that showed up in a suit of armor and a gun and a sword, right?
See, so something I was thinking about while you were talking about the game, I don't think there should be dice rolls in the game. After what you said, I think what you should do, what I would do with this style system, in my opinion, is, and this is based on all my time playing games. I've never written a game. I'm going to throw that out there, but this is kind of my opinion on what I might do if I ran the game. Mm-hmm. I would say that, I don't think it's necessarily to spend. I don't think you necessarily need to roll dice in this system. I think what you should probably do is you say, okay, what are you going to spend to make this successful? I'm going to use my reputation to make this successful. Okay, what else are you going to do? Because just one reputation isn't good enough to make you fully successful. One reputation will get you success with a consequence. If you spend 2 reputations, use 2 representations after, like check them off like points. If you use two of your reputations, or 3 of your reputations, based on like some a certain difficulty, you can move past this complication and do it successfully with no complication. I think it should be like a point spend type system where you're spending resources, because that takes the randomness, the shitty randomness feel out of it. Like, oh, I spent these things, I should do well. No, you rolled a 3. Oh, well, I don't succeed at all. No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I mean, honestly,
part of, sorry to interrupt you, but part of that is because every time you roll a dice and it never being a success means it sort of stops having an impact. It feels shitty, but it doesn't. It's like, oh, it's always going to be shitty. Mm-hmm. Like you stop feeling that. You stop getting that. Like you just don't want to stop rolling dice. You just want to stop like interacting. At least I felt like at some points we just wanted to try and not interact with the dice rolling system at all. We just wanted to like skate by until something happened.
That's fair. And I mean, in a true critique of it, it is a very light on the rules game. Like, I mean, this is one of those games where it expects you to have a lot of table banter between your characters and kind of try to immerse yourself in those characters. And then just have a framework of ways to resolve issues based on if it's a challenge or a showdown.
And I think they should take those out. I think those should be lightened even more. I think that if you want to push that talk it out sort of thing, I think you should take the dice rolling mechanic out and make it a spend system. You spend your abilities or whatever. Because then it's intrinsic. Oh, I'm going to use my gun to do this thing. Okay, you use your gun. You don't have access to your gun anymore. There's an inborn consequence then to what's happening, and that's really what I feel like they wanted. Is they wanted everything to have a consequence. So they should have played up the sacrifice idea, and like every time you do something, you sacrifice your reputation, you sacrifice your gun, or you sacrifice a point of your reputation, maybe give it like a couple points or something like that. Because I think that sacrifice is what they want. Like that's I think the gimmick that they really wanted. But they wanted to include dice for some reason, in my opinion.
Well, and maybe because dice just gives that element of randomness, because there is a certain like, oh, we succeeded, like that's awesome, because anytime you roll a 6 in a game, you feel good, right? You're just gonna,
When did we roll a 6?
Hell if I know. I don't. Did you guys rolled an A6 somewhere?
I don't think we rolled a single 6 the entire time. I think we always got consequences. Because remember, Jeff's character he did his big prayer thing and got a consequence.
What was his consequence?
I don't know. You hid it from us. Remember when he did his big prayer thing?
I didn't hide it.
The thing got destroyed. Yeah, the thing.
The consequence was that now you had to approach, like basically you would. Well, in our game at least, one of the side quests that they went on is they were trying to get the Witch of the Woods heart back.
Okay. And you just heard it here, people. He said, no, you rolled a 6 and did well. And the first thing we could think of is the first failure. I think the big failure of the game.
He didn't roll in that case though. Like that was his ability. He basically beseeched his god for a thing, and what he did is he paid. And to your point, what he did is he said, okay, well, we want to succeed here. And then his he made a bargain with his god,
and I think that's a better mechanic.
And it was interesting, and it was one of those things that I think it presented a conflict. It made it created something unique in terms of how the gameplay advanced. And I don't know. I felt like that we had in my opinion, we had a very fun and unique story. And because of the type of players that we have, like, you would not have anybody else kind of replicate that, especially because with our first step, we went immediately off of the projected story route that I had thought about. Because, and just to kind of give, a little bit more about this is that this game is for people that I personally feel are into the narrative, expressive type story games. So if you really like being the one that adds elements to a game or narrates how your character does things and really gets into that type of thing, this game is going to be a good, especially if you like Westerns and Arthurian legends. I mean, this is a good space for you to play in. And so with the characters that we had in our little group, I mean, really, I kind of presented to them like this interesting, like the idea of what they needed to accomplish, and, their minds got going and everything like that. And if I imagined step 1 would be to go to the Witch of the Woods, they literally fucking went
Well, we did the player thing. We did what all players do, which is immediately do something different than the GM expects.
No, well, yes, but admittedly, you had good reasoning behind it, which is the worst thing. And then it's like, because I'm like, God damn,
that doesn't make it any easier to deal with sometimes.
I'm not saying any easier. I'm just saying in my brain, I couldn't justify railroading you back because I was like, well, it's their idea. Let them.
Well, I think this game encourages that to a high degree. Is that character creativity, and I think that's good. I guess one of the things I would say is I agree it is probably for those people. One, it's for a whole table of those people. Like, you can't have a dissenting voice, because if you do, it's going to be harder to play this game. If somebody isn't the person that wants the highly narrative game or wants to contribute a lot more than most players do in these games, I think they're going to have a hard time. That person's me sometimes. And I think also, if the person isn't always on every time you're playing, it's going to be hard. Like, because you could have that person and they can have a bad day and they're not that person that night, and I think they're going to have a hard time with this game.
Yeah. I mean, I can,
unless the other players pull the weight for them that night.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I think it's so flexible in how you can approach it that, I think players can just be that spectator if they want to let other people have the spotlight. I just think the game becomes more interesting when everybody is able to contribute and everything.
I think that's a big part of the design of the game, and I think if you don't do that, you might as well play a different game.
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, and I think I encourage people to try it. Just because it wasn't for me doesn't mean it's not for everybody or anyone else. I do think there are good things in the game. I think the setting could be good. I just had a real problem with the rules, and part of it might have been my mindset. Some of the nights that we were playing, we did play it for a long time and stuff like that. So I'm not going to say it's not, but Inevitable is a game that if you said we're going to run another 4 months of Inevitable, I apologize, but I would probably have to pass.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't say that about very many games. There's not very many games where I will be like, yeah, I probably won't. I love you guys, but I'm probably not going to play that game with you guys. So when you guys change games, let me know.
That's fair. Well, now that I know how we felt about my... No, just kidding.
It wasn't... I swear to God. I know you think it was how you ran the game, but I do not think that's... I think you ran the game correctly.
So I mean, really, I think that, in terms of like how the game goes, this game is made for a certain type of person. Now, just to kind of bring it out a little bit more, I think that when we looked at it, honestly, I'm happy that the game is on my shelf. I think it has a lot of interesting components to it, and I might try to run something a little bit more like narrow in this type of world. That I think the problem, as you said, is that if I wanted to choose, like, I would probably use this setting and use different mechanics. Honestly, like, I hate to say that, but I probably would. I like the setting enough, and if I were to make some editorial changes, I would probably editorialize a little bit on the types of things that we were doing. I was just happy to have so much general lore and building on it that I don't think our players ever got lost, which was really good. So there was enough lore to kind of like enrich the world throughout the entire time.
And maybe the rules soured me a little bit on the setting. Maybe I should give the setting a second chance. But here's the other thing that I was going to add earlier to go back a little bit is, like, our characters were considered supposed to be so special, like one of the round table and so special. And I don't think failing all the time means doesn't make your character feel like that. Like, there being a consequence every time you do something, your character doesn't feel heroic.
Yeah. It feels like, well, since the consequences are more often than not, especially if you're playing conservatively, where you don't try to use your reputations and stuff like that all the time. Because I feel like you could easily, if you're not getting to a showdown quickly enough, you could run out of reputations and stuff pretty quick.
Right. People want to save them. And then the other thing is like, it still feels, and using them feel like you have to really kind of shoehorn like a narrative. Like, if your character is brutal and you're in negotiation, you have to say, well, I have a reputation of being a horrible person, and this should influence how they treat me. And like you have to really push to use those things. Like I can't remember what was the one thing that happened. Oh, our night player was like, well, your character seems like you would be good at finding people. Do that. And I was like, I don't have anything that makes me good at finding people. Is he on the map? I have a map. Does that matter?
Is he the sea serpent over here in the water?
It's like I don't have anything that makes me particularly good at that. Like I'm good at finding places in the wastes, but I'm not good at necessarily finding people. So I was like, it was like, is his name on the map? Because if name's on the map, I can get 2 dice to find him.
It's true, and I think that might be more of just a misconception of how the class, the quote unquote classes worked for this. But I don't know. Like I said,
because I did have skilled as an ability, and I was going to suggest using it, but I had used it at something else. I don't know, shooting somebody or something. I think I'd use skilled in tracking the guy back to their hideout is what I'd use skilled for. So the moment he's like, "Well, find people," I'm like, I
can try.
I'm not any better than you are.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that it's, and again, it's like, well, and I think the interesting part is that there's a lot of times in which the person running the game could say, oh well, you just find them, let's do that. But if there's interesting consequences to be had, like, I mean, I hate to say it, but you should explore those consequences when they present themselves, because it's better to explore consequences when they present themselves than not explore them at all and never have consequences. Like,
right. And I guess this is something that I really struggle with, like, make the consequences interesting. Don't always just say, well, I guess I get injured. But that's why I think a sacrifice system where it's like, oh, you sacrifice your map to find the location in the wastes. Like, you don't have your map anymore. Like, I think that would be more interesting than just being like, oh, you use your skill, you don't really get to use it later, and you might still fail.
Yeah.
Fail entirely too. You might still fail entirely. Like, you might not fail with a consequence. You might still fail entirely, and then your resource is just gone, and you didn't get any benefit of actually using it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all those D6, because much like in Warhammer, everybody knows you can have a shitty roll no matter how many D6 are in that roll. Right. I rolled 36 D6 and I had 18 ones. That's got to be a new record.
I had 6 hits out of these 36 dice. Kill me. Yeah,
that is well below the.
It feels like it's well below the average. Yeah.
Yeah. So needless to say, I mean, the final thoughts about the game is I mean, first of all, I think that Zachary. So this is inevitable. It was written by Zachary Cox. It was illustrated by Clear Arts.
The art's super cool, by the way. I really love the art. I did love the art.
Art is really good. I only have one complaint about the map placement in the middle of the book. That's about it. So I mean, other than that little tiny thing, I mean, the rest of the art is really good. I like the concepts. I like the way that it's laid out. I do like it's kind of like they use those Spark. They give you a lot of ideas for how to play the game and everything like that. I couldn't imagine a long-term campaign in this. I imagine just like a short, sweet, like if you have a weekend, you could easily do a showdown in this game.
Yeah, it was funny. A friend of mine, I was talking to him about Inevitable, and he's like, "How long did you guys play it for? Like, you sound like you just played it for a couple of days and you just didn't like it." And I was like, "No, we played it for 4 months." And he's like, "Well, like once or twice every month?" And I was like, "No, like every week for 4 months." And he's like, "Well, it's real bad that you didn't like that game, because that might be one of the most successful role-playing games I've heard about us playing over the last few years. Because like 4 months is a lot of time for us." Mm-hmm. Because we have a tendency to do short campaigns or some games, like my games, have a tendency to fall off after a couple playthroughs because you all hate me. But no, that's not true.
I like the Dark Sun game. You just didn't like my character.
Your character was so weird. But anyways, we might have to do a Dark Sun game again sometime. But anyways. So yeah, I mean, it was success. I think it was a successful game. It just wasn't one that was Brent's favorite.
Yeah. So right now it'll be on the shelf, right about there. Yep. So, yeah. So let us know if you happen to play Inevitable. Did you like it? Did you play it? I mean, what was your general feel? I mean, did you really resonate with the vibes the game is trying to give you? Did you use it to create something entirely, whole cloth from it? Like, I mean, let us know your experiences with it. I would be curious to know how other people played the game and what they liked and didn't like about it, because it's truthfully, it is a different enough game that I feel that people could have vastly different experiences playing the game.
Feel free to tell me why I'm wrong. I would love to talk to you guys about it.
Yeah, I mean, tell us why we're both wrong. Did we play the game wrong based on what we described today? Let us know. And if you happen to be, Zachary Cox or anything like that, and you want to stop by and say hello, of course.
I'll be willing to suggest design changes for the second edition of the game.
That's all good. I think you heard your notes loud and clear, Brent.
I laugh, everybody, because that's ridiculous. Because, like I said, I'm not a game designer. I just have a lot of opinions.
Opinions are like assholes. And a lot of assholes.
It's true. You're not wrong, Walter. You're not wrong, Walter. You're just an asshole. I feel like that applies to me a lot.
Maybe. We'll see. Okay. Well, that's it. So you can definitely let us know, like I said, in the comments and everything like that. However, if you want to find Brent as he wanders the Barrens of social media, you can find us at Blue Sky at rollwise.bsky.social, because that's not a long thing to say. Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook are just at Rollwise.
Yeah, just look up at Rollwise on any of the socials, and you can probably find us. And if you want to email us, you can email us at rollwiseguys.
Yeah, right? rollwiseguys at
gmail.com. I made the email address and I couldn't remember it. Banner day here. And on this note, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone, people of the internet and the world, thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed your time with us today. Roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there.
Thank you.